obviously your name I've heard here and there, as you do with producers, like being on various tracks, which some of my favourites as well, like and my favourite Rockstar track you produced, London, and obviously so many of Bilal's as well. But yeah, it's nice to finally get to talk and speak to you in person.
No, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. I mean, to be honest, it's probably now people are. I guess I'm getting a bit more recognition, just having a bit more of a presence. Along with my name. For years I've been doing this for about 10 years now. And I think only now, probably in the past few years, thanks to Rackstar, artists like Bilal and Taz, look, they're credible artists themselves. So, working alongside them has definitely helped my name sort of reach to a certain level. So for sure, man. And I think now, obviously, with this new release, I think it's definitely a new journey for me coming out as a producer to sort of transitioning into an artist, you could say. So yeah, for sure. It's been a fun one, man.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into talking about the new single and why you've decided to do that as well. But just first off, for people that maybe don't know that much about you, you've said you've been doing it for a while. I think I read that you've been doing this for 10 years now. So, like, do you want to just tell us a bit about how you actually got into producing and your journey so far?
Yeah, so like you said, it's been about roughly 10 years at least, I would say. Sort of my sixth form days, that's pretty much when I started out making beats and sort of getting into it through. I mean, I'm not from a musical family at all. So where I sort of got the inspiration to sort of make music, I would say it's probably a mixture of having spare time, boredom, but I guess generally just loving music in general. I think as a kid, I used to always, whenever I used to listen to music, I was always that kid with the headphones in school or banging beats on tables, creating rhythms, just naturally, I guess, just because it was fun, to be honest. And I think at a certain point, I probably did get sort of suggestions that why don't you sort of try making music, you're always doing these things, you're always in, you're talking about breaking down sort of how music's made and just generally showing enthusiasm towards music. And I think initially I thought that wasn't something that was going to be accessible to someone like me. I mean, coming from a working class family, I always thought, when I started out, that you'd need sort of real expensive gear. Obviously my inspiration at the time was, producers like Dr. Dre, Scott Storch, all these big sort of producers coming out from America. And just, through the movies and everything, just generally you'd think, you'd never have access to do something that they do. This just at their hands and, in your bedroom, for example, it wasn't accessible, I thought. And then I think Soldier Boy, his single sort of was a big, I think what was the single called? Crank That. I think
Yeah,
the
the
song
one
that was
that
viral.
everyone knows. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. The one
yeah.
he's known so mostly for. And basically I read up on it and I just realized he made music through this particular software that was free. And it was number one in the Billboard charts, and it just did a lot for me to realize that you can actually do this. You can make music, literally become a bedroom producer, making songs like Soldier Boy did and reaching those heights as well. So I guess moments like that really made me believe I could start out at least doing this as a hobby. So I guess that, not to sort of ramble on too much, but that's kind of how I got into it naturally. And yeah, that's pretty much how I started.
What was the software of interest?
FL Studio,
Yeah, I
Studios,
thought
as
thought
they called
so.
it back then. So
Yeah.
we don't call it that anymore, but FL Studio, to, I guess, a bit more of a professional sort of sounding term for it. But yeah, FL Gang for
Mhm.
sure. I'm still using that to this day. So yeah, I mean, it's evolved anyway. A lot of big known producers, a lot of people probably don't realize that use the same software as well. So yeah, FL Studio for life.
So why now then? Because you've been producing for, like you say, at least a year, at least 10 years, at least a decade, if you want to
Yeah.
call it that. Why now have you chosen? Okay, Because obviously you've put out tracks that have got considerable recognition. We've mentioned before some of these artists, especially within the South Asian music scene, that are particularly respected. Why
Yeah.
now have you decided now's the time for me to venture as an artist in my own right?
I think it's a mixture of me feeling ready to, but also with the sort of climate of music these days. I mean, initially starting out, it wasn't sort of a prominent thing for a producer to sort of come out unless you were like a P Diddy or someone like that, sort of at the forefront immediately. But I guess it wasn't something I was interested in either. I was just interested in just making music, just loving the fact of just collaborating with artists. That it was just never in my sort of intention really to be making music and becoming an artist. I just wanted to be credited, but not to the extent of being at the forefront of having my name out there in that sense. And I guess I had a bit of producers. I would say we have a common thing of, I guess, insecurity as well. Just being in front of camera. I think we're known for being behind all of the sort of commotion, you could say, or behind all the glitz and glamour, and we're just sort of happy just making music, really, and just in our bedroom or studio, just behind the camera. So why I'm ready now, I would say, I think because I'm a bit more comfortable on camera, I would say in general. But also the climate of music is got to a point you sort of do need to be out there now as a producer. You do need to in terms of your brand. I'd say it's very important more than ever now to be in front of the camera, learn, I guess, confidence doesn't come naturally to everybody. And me, I wouldn't say I'm the most confident, but I'm learning, just practicing, I guess, just practicing in the last year or two. I've kind of sort of put out sort of more video content, me making beats, things like that, just to sort of help me get out there and just show my face. And again, just things like producer tags, that's become a thing now. As well as just having your face out there. Just people need to recognize you really. And I think otherwise the way music's moving nowadays and how fast it's moving, I think it's so key to really have your face out there as well as being the creator of the music as well. So yeah, I guess a mixture of the two.
Sure. So that's why you've decided now's the time to do that.
Yeah.
So what about this particular release? So Aghoon Lago, which correct me if I'm wrong, I did a bit of Google translating because I don't know Bangla myself.
Yeah.
Apparently means feel bad. Is that the correct meaning behind it?
Feel bad? Not quite. I'm not sure. The correct term I would say is, I mean, Agun is fire, basically, and Lago is sort of an action, basically lighting a fire.
Yeah, the
Basically.
guys don't use Google Translate. I don't trust Google Translate.
Yeah, that kind of was the term, really, but
It makes
that's what
sense
it was.
though.
I guess it was just a title that we thought, when I was just discussing it with Bilal, he was, heavily involved in this track actually. Before we sort of got Trouble and Shibu involved, the other featured artists, I think the idea initially started with Bilal actually, just creating the music behind it. I had that beat probably for a few years, and I always knew that it was a special one, and I just wanted to have the right artists on that beat basically, and I guess that's why it took the time. And just building that relationship with Bilal, I realized that he could definitely fit on a track like this, especially with the sound that's coming out of his sort of portfolio as well. And just in general, just collaborating with him sort of made sort of the agenda, I guess, for the track, or the objective for it to be sort of Bangla infused, really. Because I would say I'm before this release, I would say I'm quite known predominantly in the Punjabi scene, if I'm being honest. Prior to Rackstar and prior to Bilal, sorry, Rackstar and artists like Taz, two big figures in the scene. I would say that's how I initially got myself known, really, and got my name out there. But I think with this whole trend and this whole sort of movement that's happening in the sort of Bangla music scene, I definitely felt that it was the right time as well to sort of bring my style into that movement. I thought I had a part to play as well because me being Bangladeshi myself, I thought that was very important as well for me to come out as an artist and establish that my identity as well. Because I don't think people actually realize that I am Bangladeshi and I am sort of I am obviously very integrated with my culture as well. I thought, what better way to do it than represent that through my music, you know? So that explains sort of me recruiting artists like Bilal Trouble, who's a fellow Bangladeshi artist, as well as Shibu, who's overseas. He's
Mhm.
actually from Dhaka originally. So to have sort of three sort of talented Bangladeshi artists coming through on a track like this, I just thought it would just fit perfectly. So yeah.
So, like you said, you've made this track with the idea of celebrating your culture, your identity. Hence why I've chosen these three Bangladeshi artists.
Yeah.
But obviously, like you said before, there is this whole movement, and I do want to say as well that I do particularly enjoy. I don't know how to describe it apart from a certain level of like it's class or swag. I don't know what it is, but like Bangladeshi artists, Bangla artists, there is something about them. Like where whenever I listen to them, you got your Bilals, etc. Like they've just got something about them, and I do really enjoy that. Like I think it's really nice how it is just part of that whole movement and like basically just it's going to sound good. But with that in mind, obviously there is so much Bangladeshi talent out there. Why did you decide to go for these three artists in particular?
Well, I thought definitely they all brought something to the table. Although they sort of have a lot of commonalities in their styles, I also thought they were quite different as well. Bilal, naturally, he's a very versatile artist in general. And I thought, because well, I guess naturally, because we work so well together, that's why I thought, I would send it to him initially. And, he married to the beat perfectly as well, as he's on the hook. So he really did a good job. And I just felt Bilal was a great one to have just with our working relationship and just that's the sort of a sound he's pushing out to as well. So he kind of got it straight away what my sort of objective was for the track. And for Trouble, I think he has definitely sort of that UK sound for sure. And I just felt, you know, although it is a song that I would like to cross over to Bangladesh and obviously just globally in general, I just definitely thought to have that sort of rooted UK sound that he brings to the table, I thought he would be a great fit. So, naturally I brought him on there. And Shibu was just definitely he's an upcoming artist. I don't think well, I'm not sure how many guys know him, but for sure he's a very talented artist. He's only in that 90s, he's like the youngest out of all of us. So but definitely not the least for talent for sure. And through his music, I just thought he'd bring that sort of R&B swag to it in his own style, and sort of that. I guess him being from Dhaka and rooted in Bangladesh and born there, I just naturally thought his style is going to be different anyway, and it's just he is going to bring that authenticity as well through his tone. So just the musicality reason really to bring Shubi on, to be fair. So yeah, I think they all brought something to the table for sure.
And it is really cool that you saw that as well, because I think looking at it completely objectively, these three artists, whilst they're all Bangladeshi, I don't know whether there's that much in terms of standard similarities between the three of them, but it does really work. Like when you listen to the track, like it is seamless almost, the flowing between the three artists and then you on the beat, like it works. So like kudos to you for actually thinking these three artists would work well together.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it just, to be honest, it was never, like I was saying before, it was never I didn't have it sort of ready set to have these art. It sort of flowed and happened naturally, I would say. I think just naturally the beat was made a few years ago. So then from there, we got Bilal on there. And then from Bilal, we felt, naturally it could, we could have a few more artists that could add something else to it. And I guess doing some research and through our network and our circles, we sort of realized, the artists that could potentially be on there as well. And that led to Trouble and Shibu really. So yeah, it was definitely some research involved as well, for sure.
Cool. So, rounding things off, then, what's your plan for the future? Are you thinking that you're going to put out more releases with you as a standalone artist, or would you say that you're still going to do production only tracks as well?
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think I'm definitely gonna, have a hand in different areas in music in general. I mean, as a producer, I'm just want to experiment really. I'm just in that phase of exploring different avenues as and maximizing my potential really. And that's definitely why a track like Aghoon Lago is even out, because it was just me exploring initially what it's like to be an artist and have sort of that experience of being at the forefront as well, and just seeing what doors that can open as well. Because there are certain limitations of being just a producer, and having that title of just being produced by Rimshox and not Rimshox featuring. I just want to see what the differences are. So it is a learning curve for me as well, and it's a journey that I'm taking to sort of, I guess, grow as well. Just
Mhm.
grow in general as just as a musician, just in general, and definitely I'm gonna have a hand in production with an artist, with multiple artists, and work with as many people as I can, and just maximizing my potential, and a lot of stand alone tracks too as well. Definitely plenty of tracks to come for me as an artist as well, for sure.
Where's the best place if people want to follow your journey?
At social media, if you just type in Rimshox, you'll pretty much find me everywhere. Spotify, it's Rimshox, Rimshox. My handle, Insta handle is Rimshox as well. SoundCloud, I've pretty much had such a unique name. You can pretty much find me bang on with my production name, which is Rimshox. So Google me, you'll find me everywhere, pretty much.
As a closing question, where does the name come from then?
It's not really a great story, but I could tell it. It's just an instrument that is a rim shot, basically, with a T on the end. And at the time when I was thinking of coming up with a name, I just needed a unique name, basically. Something that's quite short, simple, something that's catchy. And believe me, I went through loads of names, and I just got so insecure about which one was, which one sounded right, what sounded cheesy, what didn't sound cheesy. And I think I just sort of thought to myself, you know what? Just think of a name that no one else has got, and eventually make that into a brand, and people will find it cool anyway to sort of pronounce. And that's what it is now. I think I find it nice just to hear my name spoken by someone else, like yourself, a radio presenter. It just sounds really cool for someone else to say that name. But yeah, it was literally just replacing that instrument, putting an X on the end, and that was it.
It worked though, so
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've stuck with that name for about 10 years, so I must be doing something right.